And like the big voice said, welcome into NFL Football Sunday Wrap-Up. I am Brad Hopkins alongside Derek Mason. We are at the Hooters of Murfreesboro, 1310 Northwest Broad Street. Come on down here and celebrate the Titans' victory as we watch the final 4 seconds of this game. Mike Munchak gets his victory on the road against the former ball coach, Jeff Fisher. 28-21, the Titans are victorious. Chris Johnson running for 2 touchdowns. Sean Green had one of himself. And as a matter of fact, Jake Locker even got in on the action for his, I don't know what rushing touchdown it is for him on the season, but he got into it. Did you see a healthy Jake Locker maybe trying to move around in the pocket, or what did you see from Jake Locker today?
I still see a Jake Locker that is hampered just a little bit by the injury, but I think he feels confident enough that he can move around the pocket and do some things athletically that he was able to do prior to the injury. So I think as the weeks continue to go on, you will see a more healthier Jake Locker, and if he doesn't have any setbacks, I think Coach Loggins can go back to that original formula of running the offense, getting Jake outside the pocket, designing some runs for Jake, and that will only bode well for their running game, Chris Johnson and Sean Green.
Yeah, I think so, too. As a matter of fact, we saw some tremendous defensive performances, too. Jarrell Casey, in on some things that might make you scratch your head, though, if you're a defensive coach. Horse collaring, things of that nature. It's just about discipline. But we did see him getting after the quarterback. We saw William Hayes, big play Hayes, getting in on the quarterback. Hey, let's recount some of the old Titans that actually did some things well for the Rams today. Jared Cook, he had a touchdown today. He was loving that. We talked about William Hayes. He had a sack on the day. Cortland Finnegan had an INT.
Had an interception,
He also had a PI that didn't get called right there, which resulted in a pick for Jake Locker.
Should have been.
Yeah, and let's just talk about that a little bit, though, too, because remember, Jake threw 2 interceptions today. He hadn't had but 1 going into today's contest. People talk about him developing as a younger quarterback. I still think that he's on the course of doing some great things.
I think he is, but the first interception, I just think he stared down the receiver. It was going right into half. And I think he stared down Kenny Britt, and Cortland was in a perfect position playing that zone defense. He kind of read the route combination and set up underneath the under route on Kenny Britt. I think those are things, as you continue to go as a quarterback, he will get better. He will not look down at a receiver and stare him down, because that gives the defensive guy an opportunity to make a play. The second interception, I don't think it was his fault. Nate Washington got grabbed. I don't know why the refs didn't call it. Nate got up furious, and his hands were flailing around, saying that, hey, why didn't you call it? I got held as a receiver. And sometimes, it all depends on who the receiver is and what the name is on the back of the jersey. Sometimes they're going to call it, sometimes they're not. And in this instance, for Nate Washington, they didn't call it. But I don't blame that so much on either party. I think it was a situation where he got held, and as Jake was throwing the ball to the open area, Nate was not there because he was getting held.
Right, exactly. Now, that was interesting what you said, though, when we were talking about that. Now, come on, there's not that kind of inconsistency where the officiating crew would not recognize a guy like Nate Washington on the field running a crossing route and getting held by a defender, right?
It's funny with refs sometimes. Sometimes they'll let the smallest things go, and then sometimes you see a Dez Bryant or a A.J. Green or Calvin Johnson run that same route and get held the same way that Nate did, and they would throw the flag in a minute. So sometimes it is based on what your last name is and what you've done in this league. And I think Nate's done a great job being the Titans' go-to guy. But when you're talking about marquee names, is he one of the marquee names in the NFL from the wide receiver point that is going to draw a flag like that?
Now, were you one of those receivers in your 15 years that was in favor of the officials, or were you one of the guys that?
On some days I was in favor of them, and some days I hated them.
Yeah,
so it was a love-hate relationship with the refs.
Yeah, I bet it was. Well, listen, coming up at the bottom of the hour, we're going to catch up with AP writer Teresa Walker. We're going to find out exactly how she saw the game. Obviously, we're going to have your conversation, too, at 737-1025. You want to join the show, you're more than welcome to join in. And we've got some Facebook questions that are coming. I actually put one up. I don't know what in the world happened to it. But the basic question that we're going to be putting up on Facebook is what or who was the difference in the Tennessee Titans game today? There's plenty of examples. We saw Chris Johnson have a breakout game today, 100-plus yards for the first time on the season. 2 rushing touchdowns. Jake Locker's back in the mix after coming off of an injury, kind of a lackluster performance last weekend. But we do see him rebound, getting a scoring touchdown and distributing the ball nicely. We got Teresa Walker coming up in about 15 minutes at the bottom of the hour, plus your phone calls throughout the show at 737-1025. Keep it locked right here. This is NFL Football Sunday Wrap-Up, 102.5 Nashville, 97.5 in the borough. We are ESPN Radio.
One of the things that we've been talking about as well with the Super Bowl, of course, winners and losers. To me, one of the biggest winners of the night was Bruno Mars, the halftime show.
Are you kidding me?
Talk to me about what you thought of this halftime show.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, first off, the halftime show is one of the most scrutinizing performances ever because it's supposed to be live, right?
Right.
So you get to see the artist in their truest form performing in front of millions of people. Not just millions of people, almost billions of people because it's a global affair, right?
Right.
I thought that Bruno Mars, he hit a grand slam.
Didn't he?
I mean, just from coming out playing the drum set, I thought, oh my goodness, let's just show how multitasking you are, how multi-talented you are. This guy was amazing. I mean, I heard about Bruno Mars when he came here to Nashville.
Right.
I had no idea until I saw the performance, just what a talented young man he is.
Well, and some of the things that we've been hearing that I think is very interesting, they do not get paid for that halftime performance.
I know.
That kind of blew my mind. But you've got the biggest national audience watching you perform. So what does that mean to your career? I have good friends, and I've got one of them on the line with us right now, Dean Sams from the super group Lone Star.
See, now you're just showing off.
I am showing off a little bit.
Yeah.
Hi, Dean.
Who better to talk about the latest Johnny Manziel exploits than Tony Grossi from ESPN Cleveland? He's covered this team for quite some time. Tony, you heard the cut there from Mike Pettin, the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. It's Ross Tucker, Brad Hopkins here on the opening drive, Sirius XM NFL Radio. Do you think, Tony, right now that Mike's...
See, Tony, I have the sentiment of a lot of people that are listening to the show right now, in that unless he's holding a slate in front of his chest with numbers on it, I really don't care what he does off the football field. So my question is about his link with the locker room, about how he looks on the field with the players. What are they saying about the exploits, and how do you see that relationship developing so far?
Well, the thing is, when he returns from these weekend forays and returns back into their facility and into their team, he's been an absolutely, first-class football teammate, and that's all they see. So they have been very impressed with Johnny as a rookie.
I understand the whole glitz and glamour behind Johnny Manziel and his pick, but let's talk about Brian Hoyer, the Lakewood product, the guy that has a lot of following there in Cleveland. He is the starter for right now, but how do you see this kind of competition developing, and will he have more support than we can anticipate?
Well, I think if Hoyer stays healthy, he will absolutely kill this competition and be the starter in Pittsburgh. Brian has his own durability issues that kind of is in the back of everyone's mind.
Or at least during the pre-draft process. He's John McClain, does an awesome job covering the Houston Texans. They are in the news today for a bunch of different reasons, including naming Ryan Fitzpatrick the starting quarterback. John, it's Ross Tucker, Brad Hopkins, the opening drive, Sirius XM NFL Radio. I guess my first question is why...
When you're looking at the changes that have gone on in that team, offensively more specifically, Ryan Fitzpatrick being quarterback, what will be that identity minus Ben Tate backing up Arian Foster, minus Owen Daniels, and potentially minus Andre Johnson maybe early?
Well, Andre, of course, is not going to miss game checks. He makes $10 million, divide that over 17 weeks. He's not going to.
Last thing for me, John, wanted to get your thoughts, or at least have you weigh in on the discussion that we've been having pretty much the entire show, and that'd be Johnny Manziel. So to bring you in, I'm just going to ask you a simple question. Why did Jerry pass on Johnny?
Because he listened to his football people. And there's a lot of people in the NFL, you see the things going on with Manziel right now. It's almost like he's amped up the partying.